The Galactic Council's Xenobiology Department had classified her as mentally deficient after 3 failed communication attempts. She sat in the corner of the diplomatic holding facility on Station Kepler 9, her obsidian scales reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights. Her massive head lowered in what the Vraxian attendants assumed was shame or stupidity. They called her Specimen 47G. They didn't know her real name was Scaraveth, Keeper of the Flame, Mother of 12. The dragon had arrived on a refugee transport from the Andromeda Rim, one of the few survivors of her species after the collective's Scorched Earth campaign through her home system. For 6 weeks she had been poked, prodded, and presented with increasingly frustrated translators who spoke at her in 17 different languages, growing more irritated with each passing day when she didn't respond. Primitive species, the head xenobiologist had written in his report, lacks cognitive capacity for interstellar communication protocols. Captain Marcus Webb had been passing through the station on shore leave when he noticed her through the observation window. 20 years in the Terran Marine Corps had taught him to read body language across dozens of species. And what he saw wasn't stupidity, it was isolation. The way her head turned, tracking movement through vibrations in the floor rather than sound. The way her golden eyes fixed on mouths when people spoke, searching for something she couldn't find. The way her massive clawed hands moved in repetitive patterns against her chest when she thought no one was watching. Marcus had seen that look before, in the face of his daughter before they discovered she was deaf. He approached the facility administrator, a perpetually exhausted Centaurian named Velkesh, that dragon in holding cell 7. Has anyone tried nonverbal communication? Velkesh's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. We've attempted telepathic interfaces. Her neural structure is incompatible. I'm not talking about telepathy. Marcus pulled up his datapad, fingers moving across the screen. I'm talking about this. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the holding cell, alone except for 2 metric tons of scales, claws, and ancient reptilian dignity. Scaraveth regarded him with those burning gold eyes, waiting for yet another alien to shout words she couldn't hear. Instead, Marcus raised his hands and began to sign. The movements were adapted, human. Sign language translated through his datapads. Xenolinguistics program into something, approximating dragon physiology. But the intent was clear. His fingers formed shapes. Hello, my name. Marcus. Scaraveth's entire body went rigid. Her eyes widened, membranes flickering across them in shock. Then slowly, hesitantly, her massive clawed hands rose. You see me? Marcus felt something crack in his chest. He signed back, each gesture deliberate and careful. Yes, I see you. I understand what happened next would become legend in human diplomatic circles. Scaraveth's hands began to move in a cascade of gestures, a visual language that had evolved over thousands of years among her kind, a language the Council's translators had dismissed as nervous tics and instinctual grooming behaviors. She told him everything. Her name, her titles, the names of her 12 children scattered across the stars when their world burned. The desperate journey to Council space hoping for sanctuary, only to be treated like a specimen, a curiosity, a problem to be filed away. They think I am broken. She signed, her movements sharp with suppressed rage. They think I am less. You're not broken, Marcus signed back. You're just speaking a language they refuse to learn. He spent 3 hours with her that first day. By the time he emerged, Velkesh had assembled half the station's administrative staff outside the observation window, watching in stunned silence as human and dragon conducted a conversation that flowed like poetry. She's not deficient, Marcus told them flatly. She's deaf, and she's been trying to communicate with you for 6 weeks while you wrote her off as stupid. The scandal that followed rippled through council bureaucracy like a shockwave. The xenobiology department was censured. Protocols were rewritten, and Marcus Webb, a human veteran who'd simply paid attention, became Scaraveth's official liaison and translator. But more than that, he became her friend. It was Marcus who helped her navigate the labyrinthine asylum process. Marcus, who stood beside her when council members, some genuinely apologetic, others merely covering their bureaucratic asses, offered their fumbling apologies. Marcus, who was there when the message came through. 3 of her children had been found alive. On the day Scaraveth was granted refugee status and cleared to search for her remaining offspring, she stood in the station's departure bay, Her few possessions loaded onto a council-provided transport. Marcus came to see her off. Why? She signed to him. Why did you see me when others looked away? Marcus thought of his daughter. Of all the people who'd underestimated her because she experienced the world differently. He thought of all the soldiers he'd served with, each carrying invisible wounds that others refused to acknowledge. Because he signed, humans know what it's like to be underestimated. We know what it's like when people mistake different for lesser. His hands moved in the modified dragon signs he'd learned so quickly. And we know that the greatest strength isn't in shouting the loudest, it's in learning to listen in new ways. Scaraveth's response was a gesture that didn't translate directly to any human sign language, but Marcus understood it perfectly. It was gratitude, respect, and hope all woven together in the movement of ancient claws. As her ship lifted off, heading toward coordinates where her children might be waiting, Marcus stood at the observation window. Felkish approached, shaking their head in wonder. Your species continues to surprise us, Captain Webb. Where we saw an obstacle, you saw a person. Marcus smiled slightly. That's what humans do best. We've spent our entire history being told what we can't do, what we're not smart enough for, what limits we should accept. He watched the ship disappear into the starfield. So when we see someone else being underestimated, we recognize it. And we don't walk away. 6 months later, Marcus received a message, a video transmission showing Scaraveth surrounded by 5 of her children, all signing together in their beautiful, complex visual language. At the end, she signed a message just for him. You gave me back my voice. Humanity gave me back my dignity. We will not forget. And across the galaxy, neither would the Council.